This is Lord Ryan Savage, also known as Captain Savage. I'm the current Ansteorran Kingdom Thrown Weapons Marshal, coming to you live from the Year of the Plague. Since you now have the necessary ingredients to get your stand and target going, I wanted to do a series talking about technique. First thing we're going to start with is knives. And for that, I've asked someone to come on so we could get some training from them and ask a few questions. Would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, I'm Hamrick Stormrytter. I like to throw pointy things at targets with safe distances and safe distancing around and in between everybody. I figured I'd come out here and show you some stuff that I have learned and that was shown to me in hopes of making your knife throwing practice more successful and more fun.
So before we get to the actual range, I just wanted to ask, how long have you been throwing?
I've probably been into this type of stuff probably since I was a little kid. I grew up real redneck. Had a lot of fun with that stuff, then kind of fell out of practice until I found the SCA about 4 years ago, I think, maybe. It all kind of blurs together. But throwing weapons is something that I just always liked. It's also something that's like super easy. Like everybody that can come out to an event or to practice can pick up and play. It's most accessible, I think, activity that we have at the SCA. That's also one of the more dynamic and fun things, which is why I enjoy it so much. I like getting new people out on the line and getting them over their nerves and then teaching them a little bit so they get some success and then stick with it.
Is that a pun?
Yep.
Good. Also, what knives do you prefer to throw with?
I actually prefer ones that are at least, I'd say if you don't have knives, the ones that we have here are cold steel. These are the Sureflights. They do come with a live edge on them. Anytime you're going to get a knife for throwing, I would go ahead and file down the edge if it comes with a live edge all the way back, because all you need to worry about is the point being sharp. That's just a preference. Some people don't. That's me. As far as the size, like I said, I prefer 10 inches or longer. 12 to 14 is usually what I like. I like something that has a little bit more heft. It doesn't slide out of the hands too fast. It spins really well. It's decent.
All right. Well, you were the first person to introduce me to the idea of stance actually affecting how your throw goes. So I would love for you to show that to other people. So with that, we're going to go and get on the range.
Yay! Okay, cool. So, according to rules and regulations, target has to be set up 10 feet from the throwing line, which we already have marked off already. One of the things I wanted to talk about was how your release and your stance when you're throwing knives can make a big difference. One of the key things is you want consistency. You want to be able to throw the same way as, every time you step to the line. You want to let go the same way every time you throw a knife. You don't want to flick it. When you flick it, you're going to get a lot of rotation, which is not helpful. And you don't want to push it, because if you push it, it's not going to go anywhere. You want a nice, even throw, and you want to let go at the same point. It's going to take some practice. Don't get discouraged if you hit the target or if it bounces. If it does bounce, dodge left or right. Don't duck. So like I was saying, when you release, your stance can make a difference. And I'm just going to show you a little bit how it can be affected. If you're throwing like normal, or what most people would do, 1 foot slightly forward, step to the line, facing it. When you let go, that's where the tip is. That's where you're letting go. If you stand flat, some people can actually get comfortable like this. It's going to affect your release just a little bit. Those of you that have broad shoulders, tight muscles, things like that, it might actually help if you throw almost like you're shooting archery. You want to practice a little bit, or if you need to get closer to the target, because whenever you adjust, if you look, that's a whole foot difference in distance, and that can affect it sticking into the target because of the rotation of the knife. So really just get comfortable with your stance, get comfortable with where you're going to be releasing, and just try and do the same movement over and over and over again. Hopefully I'll actually stick these. say I did this on purpose. I'm gonna show real quick. One thing to keep track of is if the target, or if the knife hits the target and it's pointing up, you might actually want to step a little bit farther back so you have more time for the knife to rotate to go straight. These, if they're pointing down, step a little bit closer, if you can, or adjust your stance. But really just throw a whole bunch and get practice in it so you can get nice and consistent and get comfortable with it. Another thing to keep in mind is grip. You don't want to death grip it and then just chuck it. That's not safe, and you're not going to have a consistent, smooth release. Really just find a set of knives that's within your budget, that's comfortable. When we were talking about the length of it, I prefer those that are 12 to 14, maybe 10 inches minimum, just because anything smaller than that, for me personally, it feels like they're a little too lightweight. They spin too much. That kind of goes back to what I was talking about. You don't want to flick your wrist, you don't want to let go, because otherwise, if the weight of the knife is too little and you're still a novice, they'll go flying and spinning all over the place. So if you can find something that's 10 to 12 inches, I think that's going to be your best bet. The grip, like I was saying, pinching it a little bit. This is what I normally do. I let the handle, depending on how long the knife is, sit kind of the heel of my hand, and I just wrap my fingers around it like that. Some people actually throw like this, and you can put your thumb on the back of the knife and it will slow down the rotation when you let go, because when you let go, it's going to slide out and naturally slow down the rotation. These are things just to try. I would say once you get a set of knives in a safe place to practice, do the same thing and don't change up your stance or your grip. Just start with what's comfortable and stick with that and do it consistently until you can actually start sticking. Otherwise, if you start changing up all this stuff, you're never going to have a consistent throw. You're not going to have a good stance. You're just going to be starting over and over and over from square one. Now, once all that's covered, I'm going to show you a couple other things that you might actually be able to dial in, especially if you're in a competition. One thing to keep in mind when you're actually throwing at the target after you've gotten comfortable is, especially at events or you go to a friend's house, the target, this distance, the land, everything's going to be a little bit different. So when you get up to the line and you start practicing, some of the things you need to start paying attention to are when you throw, is the knife, sticking up, down, where's the point at? Did it hit handle? Things like that. If it hits handle, which that's not, but if it does hit handle, one thing you can do is just flip it around and throw it from the knife edge, which kind of goes back to what I said about filing down the edges. If you actually have knives that have a live edge, be very, very careful when you're throwing from the point. I know popular media, TV, things like that, movies, just be careful. I don't want to fill out paperwork and you don't want to scar. But that is one thing to keep in mind. If it hits handle and you can safely flip it around and throw it from the point, when you do that, then it should stick. One of the other things we need to keep in mind when we're throwing is be mindful of the people to your left or right. There's usually going to be multiple targets. The other reason you want to be mindful of people left or right is you don't want to have a ridiculous, it doesn't take a lot of power to get these things to stick, at all. You don't have to huck it like it's a baseball. It'll literally just stick. So there's no need to kick a leg up, there's no need to chuck it. That's just going to break your knives, possibly hurt somebody, and just ruin all the fun. So when you're getting ready to throw, there's no need to go all the way back here or wind it up or do anything. You want to be careful of the people around you, be mindful of your surroundings. And again, like I said, it's just consistency. Get comfortable with your grip, comfortable with your stance, know your distance. Depending on where you're at, you may be able to take a little bit step off the line, back a little bit, but you need to check with your marshal first when you're at a practice or an event. When you're just practicing at home, do what's comfortable, do what's safe. Same with throwing. I'm going to take the knives down because I don't want to hurt our lovely camera woman. So when you throw, try and throw and keep the path that your arm's following just up and down. You don't want to go across body. You don't want to throw it like a baseball or anything like that. You want to try at least just straight up and down. And that'll translate to axes as well. But especially with knives, because otherwise it's just going to be a mess when it hits the target.
I want to thank Hamrick for taking the time to come down and teaching us some of his basic knife throwing techniques and being the first one in this series that I plan to do on different throwing techniques.
Thanks for joining us. once you get your own built, get outside, get practicing, but always be safe. Hope to see you guys out there as soon as this craziness is all over with.
Thank you for watching Ansteorran. As he said, get out there and throw and be safe.